What is up, my dudes? This is Seth with the Fantasy Football Dudes podcast. We're back, guys. At Week 14 Underdog plays. We're just going to be entering into playoff week next week, boys. But we're still going to have some props come out all the way through the regular season, maybe into some of the postseason as well. But we'll see. Guys, we're almost at the end of the season. It's gone by really fast. Jordan, how do you feel about that, man?
It's gone by really quickly. I don't know. It's kind of been a very up and down year for me. So I'm in a lot of ways I just want to finish the year strong. That's my goal. We got about
Yeah.
4 more weeks here, or 14, 15, so maybe 5 more weeks, couple playoff weeks. Just got to finish the year on a good note here. Finish the year strong.
Yeah, I feel like it's gone really fast. I think when you start doing like podcasts around or these things around fantasy football, for some reason it always goes quicker, I feel like. I don't know. But then again, football's been back since September, so and
Yeah.
it's December. So I guess maybe just time moves how it normally moves and you don't know what you got until it's gone. Maybe that's just how it
Well, I think
is.
it's because Seth, we're in the weekly grind of like week by week, and it just kind of
Mhm.
goes fast because we don't necessarily look at it from a whole season standpoint. So every week just kind of goes by quickly.
Yeah, it's kind of true. Well, let's get right into it. I'll get into my first play. So my first play this week, I have George Kittle at 53.5 receiving yards. So we did see CMC go down last week. So Isaac Garendo is also going to be that featured running back now. Jordan Mason is also hurt. George Kittle did not have a good week last week, only had one catch, but that was a snow game. In the weeks prior to that, George Kittle was doing awesome. And 53.5 doesn't seem, it just seems like too little to me. And while San Francisco is favored in Chicago, I think this game is going to be somewhat competitive. And I think Brock Purdy's safety net is George Kittle. So I think you can see George Kittle, you know, 5, 6 catches plus. I think 53.5 receiving yards is just too easy. It doesn't seem like the right one.
Yeah, I agree. And Kittle has kind of always shown an affinity to like show up in big spots when they need him, in big games when they need him, and they kind of rely on him when all else kind of fails. So I like that, Seth. I'll get into my first one. I got Nick Chubb over 40.5 rushing yards. Is this? I'm curious if this line has moved at all. I wasn't able to check that before.
Let me
Let me
see.
pull that up real quick here. Yeah, 40.5 rushing yards still. I really like that. Let me make sure. I'm surprised it hasn't moved. That's why I'm gonna double check this again. Yeah, 40.5. So it's 40.5 rushing yards. My projections really like this one quite a bit. Um, this Pittsburgh defense has kind of been a run funnel lately. Like, I know it's weird to say, but like they kind of give up chunk plays to running backs. And it feels like Nick Chubb is starting to get more involved. Um, I feel like on the season, yeah, Pittsburgh, their numbers are pretty solid on the season, but if you go to their game logs of what they're giving up, game log against running backs recently, we have Chase Brown, 12 for 70 and a touchdown. Uh, Nick Chubb went over this yards 2 weeks ago against them with 59 yards. Henry had 65 yards. Tyrone Tracy had a huge game, 145 yards.
Hmm.
Um, it just feels like they're giving it up a little bit more. They're a lot better against the pass. Uh, I think Nick Chubb had 20 carries in their last game against them. Outside of the last week, Nick Chubb's gone over this number, so I think the number's too low. Um, I think this Pittsburgh run defense isn't as good as kind of what people think they are. So I like the Nick Chubb over 40.5 rushing yards.
Yep, I really like that one too. Just seems too low for a number one running back on a team. I know the Browns have been in a throw mode recently just because they've had some big games where they need to throw to win. And Jameis Winston obviously has been fun to watch. But I think this game is not necessarily going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be somewhat of a tight one. And usually that favors the running backs here. And I think honestly, Chubb could really get there in a quarter. So
Yeah.
I really like that line. Seems way too low. I'll get into my second play this week. I have JSN at 65.5 receiving yards. So when I first saw this prop, it was, I think, at 63.5. It's at 65 now. I don't believe it's moved, but I really like this one. JSN has really kind of emerged himself as the wide receiver one here in Seattle. And where DK Metcalf really can obviously take that back at some point, he just very dynamic, and it just seems like they're trying to get him the ball. And Arizona's team is, middle of the road when it comes to wide receivers, but it just seems too low for what I perceive as a wide receiver one right now. And I just think, JSN's going to end up in the 70s to 80 mark. I probably wouldn't play this at the 70, but I like it at 65.5. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I do. I like that one. He just feels like he goes over his number like every week, Seth. So I
Yeah.
like it.
And I've played him the last
Um,
few weeks too, but
yeah. I got Puka. My second play is I got Puka Nakua over 76.5 receiving yards. Just check. That is still the number. Uh, this is just kind of like a numbers play for me. Like, it's not like Buffalo is some amazing matchup, but they're back at home in the dome. He had a bad week last week, 56 yards. But the 2 weeks prior to that, he had 117, 123. He is clearly Stafford's number one receiver. That's what it feels like to me.
mm-hmm.
Um, he's getting a lot of targets. He had so yeah. So 117, 123, 98, 106 in 4 of his last 6 games. Outside of the last week, the one in there was the 1 for 11 where I think he got ejected. So
Mm-hmm.
he's getting it, and then he's getting, let's see, target wise. Yeah, he's looking at 8, 13, 9, 14, 9. I mean, he's just a target monster right now. So the number dipped. It was a little bit, I think, in the 80.5 last week. Number dipped coming off the bad week. I'll buy the dip here, and I'll trust his previous, and his role in the back at home in a dome. The total that I think is close to 50. So
Yep, I really like that play. It's just, I think Puka's gonna have 100, for what it's worth, because I think the Rams are gonna be down in this game, and they're gonna feed their best player the ball, and that happens to be Puka. I think he's gonna have 100 yards. I really like that play, Jordan. I'll get into my third play this week. I have Mike Evans at 69.5 receiving yards. I have the over, obviously. This line is rather high, I believe, but also they're playing Las Vegas. Mike Evans also came off a 100-yard game last week. I think he had nine catches. So the big thing for me here is Mike Evans is his target share is just super high with Chris Godwin out. And out of all the wide receivers, like he's getting thrown the ball more. I think the next guy getting the ball more is probably Cade Otton behind him. And that doesn't seem like it's much of a threat. So Mike Evans really is just the featured pass catcher there in Tampa Bay. And so I really like this line just by volume alone. And I think he can easily get to this 70 mark, obviously higher as well. Um, and it is the Raiders, so it's a little bit of an easier matchup. So I really like that.
yeah, I like that one set. The volume's going to be there for Mike Evans, so I do like that. I'll get into my last guy. I got Xavier Worthy over 36.5 receiving yards. It is actually now dipped a yard below at 35.5. Don't really love that, but I'm not worried about it. I mean, Xavier Worthy, it feels like the role is stabilized. We're not getting the home run plays I thought we were going to get, but he has 4 catches for 61 yards week 11, 4 for 46 week 12, 554 week 13. The targets have kind of stabilized. He's in that 5, 6. He's in the 5, 6, 7 the last 3 weeks. So I think Mahomes is kind of trusting him as more of a possession guy, the short stuff. They're kind of using him in different ways than the deep ball. I think the deep ball is going to come at some point too. And when the deep ball comes, that's when he's really going to go over this number. But I think the yard, it's kind of stabilized. Feels like his roll's stabilized. I think this number is too low. This game has a little bit lower total, but I do think the Chargers are a lot more beatable through the air than they are on the ground. And I think Worthy goes over this number. I wouldn't, once this number gets to like 37.5, 38.5, I'd be a little wary of it. But I think at 35.5, 36.5, it's really good there.
Yep. Really like that one, Jordan. I agree. His usage has kind of come to like I want it maybe of like an average, it's kind of like it's kind of a straight line now, and it's kind of I think that straight line is above 36.5. So
Yeah.
I like that play. We can get official pod play going. My favorite play this week is probably JSN or Kittle. I think I lean JSN more.
I agree. My two favorite are the Puka and the Chubb. Just 'cause I think the Worthy's range of outcomes is a little higher, I think, because we've seen that.
So we can do JSN and then do the Chubb and the Puka.
All right, let's do that.
Yeah, I think let me just pull up the lines here. So our Puka line is Puka over 76.5. Our JSN line is over 65.5. And our Nick Chubb line is over 40.5 rushing yards. So that's our official pod play this week. I'll repeat it one more time. We have Nick Chubb over 40.5 rushing yards. Jackson Smith-Njigba at 65.5 receiving yards over, obviously. And then Puka Nakua over 76.5 receiving yards. If you guys use our promo code DUDES, and you'll get 100% match up to $1,000 on Underdog. I believe that's a first-time deposit. So if you guys are new to Underdog, please use that, and that'll help us out. And also, it'll match you up to $1,000. So you put in 1,000, use our code DUDES, they'll give you 1,000 as well. And that's any amount you put in up to 1,000. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully we finish strong. It'd be really nice. I felt like this year's had some pretty big highs, but also some lows. It's just been very rocky. It'd be nice to kind of finish on an upward slope. So thanks for joining us, guys. Take care.
This has been another episode of the Fantasy Football Dudes podcast. Remember to rate, review, and follow. For more information, go to www.thefantasyfootballdudes.com. And remember, we are sorry for absolutely nothing.